How's it going, everyone? Recently, as a lot of you probably know, I purchased this 2017 Audi S3. Now, I bought this car from Carvana. Carvana is a company I've heard a lot of bad things about in the car buying experience process, I guess you could say. And initially, I really didn't want to buy a car from them, but this car came up. It was a great spec. It had everything I wanted. The miles were fantastic and it was priced pretty well. So I decided to jump on it. And today I want to talk about the whole buying experience, both the good and the bad. So that way anyone who's possibly looking at buying a car from Carvana can get some insight. So I'm gonna go ahead and sit down in the car because there's a lot I want to go through, so it'll be easiest for me that way. But yeah, let's get into it. In retrospect, now that it's all done and over with, it really wasn't horrible. There were just a lot of little frustrating things that happened, and I want to talk about those in this video. But there were also some things that I liked about the process as well. So the initial buying process of the car was pretty simple. You click on the car on their website. In this case, I was using Auto Tempest, so it searched all the car buying places. So I went to Auto Tempest, took me to Carvana. You click on the car and you hit like buy or whatever, and it takes about 10 minutes probably to go through the process start to finish. It was very simple. After the purchase was finalized, I only had to do a handful of things, which was nice. First off, I had to upload proof of insurance, which was a little bit frustrating. I'll talk about that later in the video though. Second, I had to send a purchase agreement to the credit union who was financing the small portion of the car, so that way they could sign off on it and Carvana would know that they're good for the money. And then as a result, they'd send back a letter of guarantee which showed the proof of financing to Carvana, and that would that was all that I really had to do. There were a couple of contracts as well I had to sign from Carvana, but all in all, pretty straightforward and simple. So I bought the car, I think towards the end of January. I don't remember the exact day, but I think it was the last week of January. It was initially supposed to be delivered on February 7th. So that, in retrospect, that's a pretty solid turnaround for shipping, probably a little bit less than 2 weeks, so I was pretty happy about that. That's not bad at all. So on February 3rd, which was 4 days before it was supposed to be delivered, I got a text from Carvana saying that it was now being delayed until February 18th. So this kind of took me by surprise, being delayed a week and a half. I thought that was a little bit much and excessive, and I was a bit upset about that, understandably. So this also meant that I had to re-sign all of my documents and resubmit everything to the credit union because the delivery date and all that changed. So that was a little bit, you know, it wasn't a big deal. It was just one of those things like, really, I have to do all this again for something that's not my fault. They ended up explaining that it was because of weather. Around that time, the East Coast was getting some pretty bad weather. This car is actually a California car, and then it spent like 6 months in New Jersey, but the Carfax actually showed, the last thing on the Carfax before I bought it was that it was located in Tempe, so I figured it was a local car. More on that later. Because like I said, I was really trying to find a local car, so I had my search radius at like 350 miles, so it was going about as far as like Southern California, and that was about it. So at this point I'm like, well, if there's a severe weather delay and the car is supposedly in Tempe already, why is it being delayed a week and a half? Like, obviously the car is not here, so where is the car? And there's no information on their page or anything about where the car is outside of what the Carfax says, which granted the Carfax was about a month old from when the last thing was updated that said it was in Tempe. I started to text the Carvana hotline, the automated number that always reaches out to you, and the people there, they're very kind, I will give them that, but they don't really ever provide any sort of helpful information. They really like to give you the runaround on things. Eventually I found out from them, however, that the car was located in Ohio. So this was news to me. They did offer me, however, $300 for the week and a half delay on delivery, which I was extremely thankful for. I really appreciated that. That's supposed to come in the mail in like 60 days, I guess, so won't get it for a while, but just still a nice gesture from Carvana, so I will give them credit for that. We'll see if they actually follow through. So I didn't hear anything for a few days. They followed up, I think it was like the 13th or I think it was the 13th, so almost a week later. I wanted to know if there's any update on the car. Is it still in Ohio? Is it now on its way to Phoenix? When I asked for that update, they said, we can't provide you with any updated information on your car. Pretty much what they said verbatim is, we do not offer tracking numbers for Carvana cars. Now, obviously I don't need to know the exact precise location of where the car is at, but just a general area, like, hey, it's still in Ohio, or hey, it's on its way to Phoenix, it's in Texas, you know, like that information would have been very useful. And over the text line, they would not provide me with any of that. So I ended up calling their number, and the person on the line was helpful. They kind of somewhat gave me a runaround, but they eventually gave me the information that the car was still in Ohio. So the next day I followed up again and kind of got the same runaround, and they said that it pretty much could be on the move. Not helpful information at all. And I promise this video gets more interesting. There's more to it here soon. So they texted me at February 17th at 1 p.m., which, keep in mind, I was supposed to get the car delivered on February 18th at 9 a.m. So less than 24 hours before the car's supposed to be delivered. And they told me it was delayed again. So at this point I was pretty pissed off. Like, it's getting delayed again, and you're waiting less than a day before it's supposed to be delivered to tell me that it's being delayed again. So I texted them that same morning, actually, and asked them, hey, is everything still on time? Do you need anything else from me? Am I still good to assume that the car is being delivered tomorrow? And they said, yes, 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 you're all good. So as soon as I got this update, I texted them again, and I'm like, look, this is ridiculous. I need to know where my car is. And they verbatim this time said, we are not privy to provide that information to you. So you're telling me that my car that I paid over $40,000 for, you can't tell me where my property is. And that right there, I don't know why, that just made me so frustrated. So again, I called them. Thankfully, when I called them, they're like, we don't know exactly where it is, but we do know that it left this destination this morning, and it's scheduled to be in Tolleson, which is their distribution center here in Phoenix. It's supposed to be there around 10 o'clock tonight. So I'm like, okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know. It's just a little frustrating that every time you want any sort of information, you had to call them, wait on hold for a while, press all the buttons to get to the right person. And it would be nice if their text hotline was a little bit more useful, because it's not really useful as it currently is. So since the car got in at 10 o'clock at night on Thursday, they obviously couldn't deliver it at 9 a.m. the next morning, because they had to detail it, they had to do their inspection again, they had to take it through emissions, all these other things that needed to be done before I could take delivery of it. So I'm like, okay, fine. So it got rescheduled for the 19th at 9 a.m. So only getting delayed one day, not bad at all. I'm really not frustrated about it being delayed one day. So I was told that the driver would call 90 minutes beforehand. They always send you these automated text chains that say, oh, delivery day, and the driver will call you 90 minutes beforehand. You'll go take it for a drive, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, I'm expecting a call 90 minutes beforehand. So it hits about 8:30, 8:45, which is about 15 minutes before it's supposed to be delivered. I haven't heard anything, so I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I call them. They say, oh, the driver should reach out to you. You know, we'll remind him to reach out to you. So I got a call around 9 a.m. saying, oh yeah, I'm starting to load up the car now. I'll be there whenever. So I think he showed up around like 9:45 or so. So it was late, but I mean, 45 minutes late on a Saturday morning, like, who cares? Whatever. I'm not, you know, upset about that. Just figured I'd mention it. I was a bit frustrated when I first saw the car, though. The detail job on it was not very well done. Like, there were hard water spots everywhere. Like, the glass had hard water everywhere. The paint itself had hard water spots and like smear marks everywhere. Not like scratches or anything in the paint, just like general like smear marks from water and soap and stuff that wasn't dried properly. The screen in the interior had a bunch of smear marks on it. So overall, it just really wasn't cleaned very well at all, which is a little bit disappointing. On top of that, they must have put like the most aggressive tire shine in the world on it, because as soon as I drove the car, black stuff was kicked up all over the sides, all over the back of the car from the tire shine, and to the point where it's still on there so aggressively about 2 weeks later now that it's still kicking stuff up. So whatever, again, just another little thing that's like kind of frustrating about all this. I will say, however, the delivery process itself was extremely smooth. The guy got there, I started looking at the car while it was on the bed, he unloaded it, he's like, all right, go take it for a spin if you want. So I went, drove it for 15 minutes, made sure everything was fine. Again, I will mention I did test drive about half a dozen other S3s before purchasing this one, so it's not like I hadn't driven this car before I purchased it. Granted, I hadn't driven this exact car, but I had driven a car that was mechanically identical to it. So after I got back from the test drive, I signed some papers, he explained a couple things to me, and I was done, he left. So that was very simple and straightforward. So the first step after I got the car and he left was, all right, I don't want to see this stupid Carvana plate frame on my car. So the Carvana plate frame, the chrome thing, was bolted in with 2 little chrome hex bolts to the top of the plastic plate frame that's actually attached to the car. And as soon as I saw those, I'm like, that doesn't look like the bolts that should be on there. So I decided to remove them, obviously. So as I was trying to remove them, there's a little metal bracket, obviously, that the bolt itself goes into. And that metal bracket within the plastic plate frame was completely broken to the point where when I'd spin the bolt, it would just spin the metal bracket, so it wasn't actually loosening at all. So the only way I could get that plate frame out was by breaking the metal bracket. Or the plate frame as a whole I had to break. And you might say, well, why'd you break it? Well, either way, at some point when I did get my actual license plate, because there's still obviously a temporary plate on it right now, I would have to remove that plate frame. Even if I wanted to keep it on, I'd have to remove that plate frame in order to put the actual license plate on. So it was going to happen at some point. So obviously at this point, I need to file a claim with Carvana that something was broken on my car. So I went online, I filed the claim. They reached out to me and they said, well, you can take it to one of our service centers to have this looked at and then replaced. So I'm like, well, I don't really want to take it to a service center. Like, why would I want to do that? And especially once they told me that the service center was a Pep Boys, I'm like, I'm not taking my car to a service center. I'm not taking my car to your Pep Boys just to have a plastic plate frame replaced that I can do myself in 10 minutes. So I'm like, what if I just go buy the new plate frame from Audi, or the plate bracket from Audi, and then, you know, I upload the invoice, the receipt, and, you know, you guys just reimburse me. They're like, fine, you can do that. So I'm like, okay, that's nice at least. So I went up to Audi, got the new plate bracket, which was $232 from Audi, which was insane, but I'm not having to pay for it. I'm still waiting on Carvana to send out the check, but that's also because it all happened so recently. I think they might have also replaced the pads right before I got it. And another issue I'm having is that not all the time, I'd say maybe like a third of the time I brake, it's slowly going away the more I drive the car, is the brakes will just squeak like crazy. And I think if they did replace the pads, again, I'm not sure, they didn't put any of that anti-squeal stuff on there that you're always supposed to do when you do brakes. So that's a little bit annoying. They said, again, you can take it to one of our service centers, which is a Pep Boys, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. They did also say, though, if you want to take it to somewhere that's out of our network or whatever, that you could, there'd just be a $50 deductible. So I might end up taking it to the Audi dealership, but at that point it's like, do I really want to pay that just to, you know, not have my brakes squeal? And again, like I said, slowly getting better over time anyways. I could also just do it myself and put some anti-squeal stuff on there. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my Carvana experience. So another nice thing about Carvana is, let's say I got this car and it was a piece of shit, or I hated something about it. Like, for example, I hadn't driven any S3s before and I just didn't like the car. You do get 7 days to return it with a full money back guarantee. So that's nice. Obviously, I'm not doing that. I've had the car for almost 2 weeks now, like I said, and it's been absolutely amazing. But that's my Carvana experience. So knock on wood, nothing else is going to go wrong. They're going to send me that $300 check like they promised, as well as the money for the plate bracket as well. But I just say the most frustrating thing about all of this is just when you ask for an update on your car, or, you know, you just want some more information on it, and they just straight up tell you, we can't give you that information. Like, what do you mean you can't give me information about something that I bought from you? Like, especially something like this, you know, like if I'd order a t-shirt from you and you can't tell me where it is, whatever, it's a freaking t-shirt. But like this is a car that I spent a lot of money on. So that, and the fact that their text line is just completely useless in my opinion, outside of just disappointing you with more delay updates and things like that. And as well as, if you're going to provide me, you know, you're going to tell me it was delayed, don't wait until like 20 hours before it's supposed to be delivered. Like, I get that the truck was obviously running a day late, but you probably knew that a little bit sooner and probably could have told me beforehand. It could have been better. Like, for example, all the cars I test drove at dealerships, just about all those dealerships were super kind, super helpful. The salesmen were all fantastic. So if I were you, I would recommend buying a car at a dealership. Just your standard run-of-the-mill dealership. Obviously, do your research. Not every dealership is perfect, but the dealerships that I all went to when I was test driving either S3s or the other cars I were looking at were all miles better customer service-wise than Carvana was. So With that being said, if you've had any Carvana experiences, leave them down below. I hope it wasn't anything worse than what I had to deal with, which honestly, again, in retrospect, wasn't too bad. But I would not buy a car from them again. I'm just rambling at this point though. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you all next time.